one thing I wanted to mention, and I think you touched upon it earlier on, Dan, is young carers. Sometimes as a young carer, you know, it might be that you're in school and you've got your education to juggle whilst also being a carer. I know there's loads of good organisations out there to support young carers. Yeah, but also that family network that you mentioned earlier on. So you were young and your siblings, sometimes unintentionally, the children who were not being cared for as such, sometimes I can feel that the focus isn't on them. Did you feel like that yourself, John?
You know, I was quite lucky because my dad worked away. It was in the 80s, he couldn't get work in Liverpool, so my dad had to work in London. So there was my mum, then there was my sister. Now my sister spent long periods of time in hospital, so that left me and my brother. Now we were quite lucky because my nan was really, really good with us. She was like a second mum. So we were quite lucky that we had that other person who was, even though wasn't a parent, was a parent to us, do you know what I mean? So we were raised between my mum and my nan, and obviously my dad when he came home from London. But if without that network, I probably would have felt that way a little bit. And you know, as a child, you're not emotionally strong enough to understand sometimes what's going on. So it can feel that because you've got an ill relative, that person does get a lot more attention, and it does have an effect on you. I was quite lucky that I understood from a young age that was the case, but then it came out to me later in life when I had my own sort of mental health problems and things like that stem back to issues to do with when I was a child and things. So it's not always sort of presentable straight away. It's something that can be noticed later on in life or after that. One of the things I did always struggle with as a child was, and this isn't the case for every carer because not every carer cares for somebody who's got a terminal illness, but the knowing that one day this was going to stop, do you know what I mean? And not knowing how long that period was and not being able to plan properly for that sort of period. So, I mean, I've got a cousin who's also got cystic fibrosis who's just this weekend celebrated his 30th birthday. My sister was 20 when she was died, so there's no sort of like, no one can say, oh, you've got 6 months or you've got 6 years. It's it'll happen when it happens, and it's the inevitability of knowing it's going to happen but not being able to kind of prepare yourself properly for it. And again, after my sister died, emotionally it took a massive toll on me and the family, because everyone was so invested in the care of my sister that when she died, it was kind of like, it wasn't just me, there was lots of other people that were like, what do we do now? Do you know what I mean? What does life look like now? Because life had always been that Emma was there and Emma was a big focus in the family. And then when Emma wasn't there, it was kind of, a lot of people felt that void of what happens now, do you know what I mean? So.
Thanks for sharing that as well, Dan. We've talked about quite a lot of the disadvantages of being a carer, and you know, I know we had a chat earlier on, John. I didn't like using the term disadvantage because it feels a bit, you know, a negative, but I think for the purpose of the conversation. But let's talk about the advantages, and I think the biggest advantage is, I'll offer it to you. What's the biggest advantage of being a carer?
I think the privilege and the relationship that you're able to build with the person you're caring for. Able to, I know with my mum and dad, they gave me a great upbringing, and I felt as though it was my turn to give something back then. And it was an immense privilege, which I wouldn't change for the world.
Yeah, and I love the use of that word privilege actually, because that's a really nice word to use. You know, the advantage is you're looking after your family, and that is a privilege. Can you think of any other advantages?
For me, I think it's again, I don't know whether this is because it's been from childhood, but because I was a carer at such a young age, it made me a caring person. And it made me the type of person that is, if somebody needs help, I'll always be the first one to kind of offer help or try and fix a problem. And even now, I mean, my job is a caring role. I work in a caring role, and I think that's all stems back. And the reason I can do that job so well is because of the skills that I learned as a carer. So although my caring story was about somebody else, it made me the person I am today, which meant that I've got the empathy and I've got the understanding of things to be able to do a carer's role now, whereby I can help other people, and without that experience, I don't think I'd be as good at what I do now.
So I think that is about taking an experience, something that's happened to you in life, and turning it into a positive,
it's
isn't it?
It's a skill set, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Not everybody can be a carer because it does require a lot of empathy, a lot of patience. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, I know when I was caring for my auntie, she had cancer and was bedbound, so things like, you know, if she has an accident and stuff like that, not a lot of people can do that, can step up and do that sort of thing. So it does give you that skill set as well, and that is an advantage because going through life, they are skills that you will need later on.
And I think it is important that we do mention that, you know, we do try our best, and we may say, you know, it's a privilege, but there's only so much we can actually do. So it might get to the point that you can't care for that person anymore, and you may need professional assistance. But don't give yourself a hard time over that, you know. It's about, you know, and coming to organisations like Sefton Carers and other carer centres, you know, there's nothing wrong with using them organisations and getting support, you know, so don't give yourself a hard time. Does anyone add anything to that, or maybe?
I think in terms of the carers centres, they can provide a huge range of support. As you said, they can provide benefits advice, they can provide a listening service, they can provide carer assessments, emergency cards, social activities. It can be a real outlet for people, and I don't think they're used enough, and I don't think services refer to carer centres enough. It's part of my job to constantly encourage clinical staff to refer carers on to the carer centres because of the resources they can gain by.
I think the strength of a carer centre is it can be a one-stop shop. So if you take on a caring role and you're obviously caring and it's taking all your time and your energy, you do need that support where a whole sort of holistic package of care could be provided that covers the financial situation you might find yourself in, the emotional troubles that you may be experiencing as a result of the caring role, the pressure that's generated by it, because there certainly are those. You need advice, information, guidance. The carer centres as a whole can actually bring that all together for you. Or based on, if it's what you require, a very sort of detailed assessment of all those sort of caring needs and the position you find yourself in your life at that time. And then, as I say, an individual support plan can be put together. Sometimes that comes from the carer centre, in this case Sefton Carer Centre, but it also means not just our services, it's about coordinating services that exist out there and beyond the carer centre itself, but bringing it together in a coordinated way that makes sense for the individual and can make a real difference.
And I think unfortunately there are a lot of services for carers, but unfortunately a lot of people don't know about them. Like when I became ill, my wife became my carer, and she did eventually find Sefton Carer Centre, and she had someone she could go and talk to about the things that she couldn't talk to me about, which was brilliant. But I remember at the time when I was ill that everything was about me and nothing about the people that were around me. And it was only obviously when we found Sefton Carer Centre that she got that sort of time for her. But back in the 80s, I don't ever remember. We had a lot of support from the hospital to hold her hay, but I don't remember anything actually being signposted as this is just for carers, do you know what I mean? So it's great that these services exist now, but people need to know about them more, and hopefully things like this video will help do that and point people in the directions of the caring services.
So certainly for people living in Sefton, I just want to point out, look out for the Champion newspaper. 4 times a year, Sefton Carer Centre puts a double-page spread to advertise its existence, the services it provides, and there are some themes that sort of run across the quarters, as it were, but it goes into every household in Sefton. And there's all the usual means that we, as an organisation, can publicise our services, the services of others, the things that we're familiar with, Facebook, Twitter, websites.
And that's one of the positives about social media at the moment, is it does get the message out there, because the centre in Crosby, I know I've drove past it dozens of times and not knowing what it was, and it was only when my wife used the centre I actually realised what that building was and what it was for. So it's good that the message is getting out there about what's available and what's...
And word of mouth is really important as well. Yeah. If carers do connect to services, they need to be telling the professionals. There is a carer centre that I'm aware of, you need to be aware of as well. Because I think somebody made the point before, lots of professionals, despite gallant efforts, aren't necessarily tuned into the fact there's a carer centre down the road. It can bring support together that is non-medical, essentially, and can put together packages that when people leave the care of the NHS, they get the support they require as a single package.
And are we in agreement that when people sort of might get told about, well, we've got Sefton Carer Centre, I find that people sometimes think, I can't go to them because they're going to think I'm not coping well. People have this sort of myth, and it's important that people realise that it's not about that, it's about supporting you. So, John, you've mentioned Sefton Carers quite a lot. Obviously, this video is mainly going out around Merseyside, so it's important that we mention that there's the Liverpool Carers Centre, Knowsley, but also across the country.
Every area has its own
exactly, So we will put some phone numbers up of the organisations at the end of the video, but is the care centres, are they affiliated to the local council, or is it in connection with Carers Trust?
It varies. There is a national organisation, carer centres, as independent organisations, often charities in their own right can affiliate to, and that's the Carers Trust. And some do, some don't. It's purely voluntary because, as I say, carer centres tend to be independent charitable organisations, although some local authorities have taken those services and developed them in-house. But here in Sefton, and I think the whole of Merseyside, there are independent carer centres, all of whom I believe affiliate to the Carers Trust, which can bring lots of advantages in terms of advice and information and grants coming through, channeled through the centres and getting them out to carers themselves as such. But it's less patchy. Some years ago it was quite patchy. Some centres existed and others didn't exist in different parts of the country. But I think there's a uniform coverage now by and large, mostly independent organisations, some attached to local authorities. And I think in some cases to NHS trusts as well.
Well, I suppose people who are watching who are not in the Merseyside area, they could go to the Carers Trust website, couldn't they? And we'll share that website at the end of the video as well. So I'm just interested from a carer's point of view, John. How would someone says to a carer, well, have you tried going to the Sefton Carer Centre or Liverpool Carer Centre? How does that look? Can you just phone up and refer yourself? Do you just turn up at the building? How would it typically look?
Well, the first thing to say is that services are free. That's really important. If you're looking for a carer centre, as I say, you've just said it actually, Mark, go to the Carers Trust website. Then you can put in your postcode. It will come up with the centres that are nearest to you. And in my experience, all the centres that I've worked in or I've been aware of and had contact with, all friendly people waiting to help and support. So there's no judgment here. It's all about we're here to help. So please get in touch. And the more that the centres themselves put the publicity out, the more professionals are aware of the existence of carer centres and what they can do, the more chance that carers will find those organisations, and then when they do contact them, find that they are friendly, supportive and accessible. So carer centres are there, please.
I think there's a variety of ways you can access them. You can email, you can phone, you can just walk in.
But I think that's the first step, isn't it? That what do I say? How will do it? What's it going to look like when I get in there? How are the people going to react? And as you said, it's very friendly and it's open, and the service is there to be used. So let's use this.
And it's good that it's that available, because a lot of people probably watching this video now will probably not have realised that it's that easy to get into. Some people will probably think, I need to go to my doctor and get referred from my doctor or something like that. So to know that it's that open and they can just rock up themselves.
Yeah, you can self-refer, absolutely, no problem at all. You mentioned young carers before, really important. We do a lot of work with schools in Sefton. A lot of our referrals of young carers from the age of 5, as young as 5, up to 16, 17 are coming from schools and colleges. So we're getting the message there, but it is about, as I say, making sure that we are highly profiled and people just find out that we are very approachable.
I'm glad that you mentioned that about young carers. Bernardo's do a lot for young carers. So that's another organisation that people bypass as well. So again, we'll share information about these organisations at the end. Can we think of any other organisations that can also offer support, or any other sort of resources out there that might be useful for carers?
I think some of the government websites where they can provide advice for things like the cared for, applying for attendance allowance, that kind of thing. Some of them you can apply for online through the government websites. So some of the statutory services, they're available free to everyone.
information on the website. Yeah.
Sometimes too much information, which gets back to the role of carer centres. It can be a one-stop shop. So you can come in just to say, I have this situation I'm dealing with, and then professional staff and sometimes volunteers who are trained and supported can actually put that package of care together for you. So you don't have to chase around from this website to that website to try and track down that organisation. It can be done with you and for you by supportive staff.
I know when I got ill and before my wife knew about the Sefton Care Centre, one of the services that she did use was the Pathways service here at Life Rooms, and they signposted it to the services that were available that she didn't know, including Sefton Carers. So sometimes just having that one person who can point you in the right direction helps as well.
That's a question I was going to ask John about Carer Centre. So if at the Life Rooms or Pathway service sort of told someone about the Carer Centre, would there be any possibility that your workers meet people in places like the Life Rooms, or does everyone travel to you?
No, in normal times, hopefully, well, certainly pre-COVID times and hopefully post-COVID times, when it's appropriate, we'll make a home visit if that's appropriate. Yeah. People can come in off the street, people can talk to us online if they so wish. We'll meet people in community locations, not a problem whatsoever.
Because I think that if someone feels comfortable somewhere, or I didn't know you.
We have to be an accessible service.
Yeah. So I think that's really good, and I think that will put a lot of people at ease now. And well, actually, it might just be that they come and do a home visit first, or I meet them somewhere where I feel safe. I think that's really good. So thanks for sharing that, John. Really good. I think we've got loads of good information about some of the good organisations. One thing we said at the beginning of the video is we want to ensure that people are looking after themselves. So I thought to end the video, what I'd like to do is just go around the group and just say one thing that you personally do for your own well-being that helps you with your own well-being, because I think it's important that we still look after ourselves. So I'll start off, and I'm going to share I've recently started doing the couch to 5k, so jogging, and something that I never thought I'd do, but I downloaded the app off the NHS website, and I'm on week 7 now, and on one of the recent podcasts, as I finished the run, the lady who does the commentary says, you're now officially a runner, and it really paid, but that you know, it takes me 40 minutes. I like to get up in the morning. That's just 40 minutes for me time. It gives me a chance to think as I'm running, and it's been really useful for my well-being. So that's something that I do. I want to go this way. So Dan, what about you?
A couple of things for me. I got into coaching kids cricket a couple of years ago. Cricket's never a sport I've really been a fan of, but my kids started playing for the local club, and from there I developed an interest and grew that. So for me, that's that one thing that's mine that I can do. Another really simple one, I love going for a drive, especially if you're feeling stressed out or you just need that little half hour to yourself. I love just getting in the car and going for a drive somewhere. And it doesn't have to be anywhere specific, it's just having that little bit of time. Audiobooks is also a big thing for me. I love listening to audiobooks, so going in the car and putting one on and just driving and zoning out for a little bit is obviously still aware of the road, but zoning out to kind of like the problems and stuff it's really, really useful as well. So that's kind of my thing.
Good, thanks Dan. John, what about yourself?
Well, I'm smiling to myself because you said you've gone from couch to 5k. I've gone in reverse. Completely gone in reverse. I've gone from 5k to couch. The thing that really relaxes me a lot is reading. So I read an awful lot of stuff, and that sort of takes me away from work and pressures and the rest of it. I'd like to say I take lots of exercise, but at the moment all I'm getting is the exercise of turning a page in a book. I'll have to address that issue and get back onto the old 5k.
But reading, it's a brilliant distraction, isn't it? You know, stop sort of distract yourself from your worries. So that's a really good.
Do what you enjoy, relaxes you.
Yeah. And finally, Kat?
Finally, I follow my beloved Everton FC. Not always the most relaxing of pastimes, and it's the hope that kills you.
But you're so right, following a sports team or whatever, like I think it's really important to have like a hobby, I suppose, isn't it? I think that's really good. That. Anything else that anyone wants to mention around carers, maybe that we may have missed out? I think we have. I've been I've really enjoyed the chat, so thanks for taking part. And I hope you enjoyed listening to this video as well. Please feel free to contact us. You can contact the Life Rooms on 0151 478 6556, and you can also go onto our website, which is www.liferooms.org. And if you've enjoyed the video, please check out some of our other videos on our YouTube channel, and if you want to fill in an evaluation form and tell us what type of Life Rooms chats you'd like us to do next, get in touch with us. This is your service, this online offer is for you, so let us know what you'd like us to focus on. Thanks everyone for watching, hopefully you'll see you soon. Take care everyone.
Bye.
Bye.